The WYATT SICKS are here, and they are far and away the most popular topic in the world of professional wrestling right now. That and Joe Hendry from TNA making a shocking appearance on NXT. Let's just say that this week in professional wrestling was particularly extra crazy. The WYATT SICKS are an interesting faction in the fact that, well, apparently they kill people, but also in the fact that this group is composed of mostly failed WWE experiments and WWE superstars that never seem to quite stick with fans or the WWE itself. So it is interesting to think about the fact that individually, each member of the WYATT SICKS would likely not be able to make any noise whatsoever, let alone get any sort of meaningful TV time. But together with these new gimmicks, they have fundamentally shifted the bedrock of WWE storytelling while also delivering one of the most memorable and impactful debuts in the history of all of professional wrestling. In short, this group of misfits has become absolute must-watch TV. So in today's video, we're gonna shine a light at the monsters under the bed as we explore in detail the history of every member of the WYATT SICKS, who they are, and how they ended up under those masks. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring that bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I'm confident that you're gonna fall in love with this YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. By the way, my review of that fantastic episode of Monday Night Raw is up on my Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZap. I go into full detail about my thoughts about the WYATT SICKS, about the Seth Rollins return, Drew McIntyre quitting, and more. So go check it out. It'll be the link in the description. But let's jump into it. Let's start off by talking about the crawling demonic witch who is portrayed by none other than Nikki Cross. Nikki Cross actually got her start in the WWE through the NXT system, much like every other member of the WYATT SICKS, where they very early on joined a faction comprised of Alexander Wolf, Eric Young, and Killian Dane. This group was collectively known as Sanity. Sanity was this dark anarchist-like faction in NXT. They weren't supernatural, but they were definitely more on the unhinged and dark side of the spectrum, and the unhingedness of the group was definitely carried by Nikki Cross herself. So even though Sanity was not a supernatural group, Nikki Cross already has plenty of experience playing the batshit crazy basket case within the WWE. Sanity did win some gold in NXT by winning the tag titles, and Nikki Cross even got to feud with Shayna Baszler for the NXT Women's Championship. However, the group weirdly got drafted to SmackDown, but for some reason left Nikki Cross behind in NXT, and the group never really found any footing on the main roster. And frankly, I believe it's because they left Nikki Cross behind in NXT. She was the heart and soul of Sanity. Eventually, Sanity did disband, and everyone in the group except Nikki Cross was eventually released from the WWE. When Nikki Cross was called up to the main roster, she was immediately paired up with Alexa Bliss in this kind of nutty, hot and cold style tag team that would actually lead to a proper partnership between the two, a partnership that would lead to the two winning the women's tag titles. They did eventually lose the tag titles, which for some reason, I still don't remember why, led to the Fiend Bray Wyatt attacking Alexa Bliss, which turned Alexa Bliss evil and crazy and into this witch, and then Alexa Bliss would attack Nikki Cross and joining the Fiend. So Nikki Cross already has some early connections with the Fiend Bray Wyatt. Nikki would then entirely change her gimmick and personality to Nikki ASH, an acronym for almost a superhero. This was a hurricane-like style babyface gimmick, which under most circumstances would lead to most people getting put in the undercard and probably getting buried, but no, not Nikki Cross. For some reason, she ended up winning the Money in the Bank briefcase, cashing in on Charlotte, and becoming a WWE Women's Champion. It all happened ridiculously fast. She would lose that title back to Charlotte. Shocker, nothing crazy about losing titles to Charlotte. That's just what she does. And then she would go through her supervillain phase where she would go and change her mask to being black, but then she was eventually just relegated to jobbing for other women and being put into the 24/7 title picture. After that, she started fading away and having less and less TV time, being relegated to these weird segments where she would just stare into the abyss and walk in this trance-like state. She eventually disappeared from her TVs for quite a while while and just resurfaced as the human representation of Abby the Witch from the Firefly Funhouse. Now let's talk about Eric Rowan, who was the guy behind the rabbit mask with the giant hammer. Eric Rowan was one of the original members of the WYATT family, dating all the way back to FCW, right when the NXT that you know and love was formed. He's as OG as it gets with the Wyatts. Here's a little fun fact. Rowan won the NXT titles alongside Harper, defeating Adrian Neville and Bo Dallas, the current leader of the WYATT SICKS. Funny how that ended up working out. Rowan and the rest of the WYATT family were then called up to the main roster, where they had a legendary, albeit really short run, where they feuded with the likes of Daniel Bryan, The Shield, and even a John Cena WrestleMania feud. After that, Rowan did get a really short stint as a single star after the WYATT family shortly dissolved, where he actually represented Team Cena in that very famous Team Authority versus Team Cena Survivor Series match, where he was on the opposing side opposite from Harper, also of the WYATT family. It was like a family civil war. There was a short reunion of the WYATT family again, but because of injuries, it didn't really last very long. But it did include that match between Rowan and The Rock at WrestleMania, that famous 6-second classic. He did reunite with Harper on SmackDown to form a tag team called the Bludgeon Brothers that was actually uber dominant in the SmackDown tag team division. They went around carrying these giant hammers, which is probably why his current character is carrying around a hammer. It's probably a little nod to those Bludgeon Brother days. He did shortly have that random stint as Daniel Bryan's eco-friendly enforcer while Daniel Bryan was the WWE champion, but it didn't really materialize into anything meaningful for Rowan himself. He was let go as part of the major rounds of COVID-19 layoffs in the WWE and has been spending time across the indies and even AEW during his time away from the WWE. In his time away from the WWE, he became, sadly, the last surviving member of the original WYATT family trio, having attended both Bray Wyatt and Brody Lee's memorial on WWE and on AEW. But now he's back as the human incarnation of Rambling Rabbit, continuing both the legacy of Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper in the process. Now let's talk about Dexter Lumis, who was the guy in the Mercy the Buzzard mask. Out of all of the members of the WYATT SICKS, Dexter may legitimately have had the most weird WWE run out of all of them. He started his time in the WWE in the late years of NXT Black and Gold in 2019, where he was the quote, tortured artist. He wouldn't speak for literal years on NXT. He would just go around with an easel and drawing materials, and he would draw depictions of his thoughts and foreboding warnings for his enemies. He actually drew those. He's actually quite good as an artist. He and current WWE superstar Indy Hartwell struck up an on-screen romance where Indy proposed to Dexter. She fell in love with him and really liked all of the drawings. And they even had a WWE wedding that didn't end up in chaos, which is a rarity these days, where Dexter said his first words in NXT TV in years in saying, "I do." And then he got released 5 months later after that. He did come back as a hooded figure for a little bit that would jump the barricade and assault WWE superstars before being escorted out by police. He even abducted The Miz and attacked him a bunch of times, but that was later proved to be a deal that him and The Miz had backstage. Anyways, that ended up involving a feud where Dexter Lumis was trying to collect money that The Miz never paid him. He ultimately lost the feud with The Miz, and then we haven't really seen Dexter Lumis at all since. We're talking well over a year that we haven't seen Dexter Lumis on WWE TV. But now he's grown out a beard and he's the human representation of Mercy the Buzzard of the WYATT SICKS. This makes me so happy. Oh no! Oh! That was a sneak preview of this week's Wrestling is Cool Match Club, which is exclusively available over on patreon.com/SantiZap. This week we're looking at Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio, SummerSlam 2002. Abyss versus Sabu in a barbed wire massacre match. The famous Firefly Funhouse match between The Fiend Bray Wyatt and John Cena. The WrestleMania 22 Classic between Kurt Angle, Randy Orton, and Rey Mysterio. And the indie darling ladder match between Kevin Steen and El Generico. Not only that, but on the Patreon, you get the Raw review, the SmackDown review. You get so much more content. Come check it out. It's patreon.com/SantiZap. It'll be the top link in the description or the link in the pinned comment. Come try it out, even if it's just for 1 month. I'm confident that you're really gonna like what's over there. Okay, now back to the video. Now let's talk about Joe Gase, who was the guy wearing the pig gas mask. If you haven't been watching NXT for the past few years, first of all, shame on you, then there's a good chance that this might be your very first exposure to anything related to Joe Gase, because he's the only one out of everyone in the WYATT SICKS that has not had any sort of main roster run. He started out during the universally hated NXT 2.0 era, which honestly wasn't as bad as people say that it was. People just hated it because it was the death, literal and figurative, of NXT Black and Gold. And yes, it did lead to a ton of people that all of us loved from NXT Black and Gold getting fired from the WWE. Anyways, he started out as this politically correct character that would go around wanting to make NXT a safer place for everyone to work in. He did feud with Braun Breaker for the NXT title for a little while, but honestly was never a genuine threat to win it. But in the process, he did start becoming a darker, more sinister version of himself. He became this modern day cult-like leader of a group called the Schism, a group that would randomly also include The Rock's daughter, Ava Raine, who is now the manager of NXT. The group did eventually disband, and Joe Gase would become a crazy, pain-hungry character that loved pain and laughed at any threats of violence. It was almost like a dark Looney Tunes character that he had created for himself after the cult-like leader. During his time in NXT, Gase drew a lot of comparisons to Bray Wyatt, both because of his in-ring ability, both because of his ability to bring spooky characters to life, his body size, and his mic work. There were a lot of things that just created a lot of resemblance to Bray. What separates Gase from the rest of the WYATT SICKS members is that he's the only one in the group without a long hiatus from TV. He was on TV feuding with Shawn Spears on NXT as recently as like 6 weeks ago. So now I guess we can consider his debut as the human representation of Huskis the Pig as Joe Gase's official WWE main roster debut. And finally, let's talk about Bo Dallas, the leader of the WYATT SICKS, known as Uncle Howdy. Bo Dallas, just like everyone else in this group, also cut his teeth in the WWE in the NXT system, where he would play the upstart, plucky, happy to be there white bread babyface that so many people hate. I mentioned already earlier in this video that he actually lost the tag titles to the Wyatt family involving Rowan and Harper, but the entire reason why they were feuding with them in the first place was because Bo Dallas actually refused Bray Wyatt's offer in early 2013 to become a member of the Wyatt family. Funny how that turned out. Bo Dallas did eventually become the NXT champion as one of the most universally disliked babyfaces ever in NXT. But to Triple H's credit, he was a good booker even back then. They did lean into this with his character by making him into this delusional babyface champion that thought everyone loved him, that thought he was the main character of every story that he was a part of, and always believed that he was doing the right thing, even though he would cheat to win every single match. Honestly, it was a brilliant character. I love that version of Bo Dallas. They tried to keep this character with his call up from NXT to the main roster. This is where Bo Leave was born, where he would tell everyone that in order to achieve your dreams, all they had to do was Bo Leave. He did go on an admittedly pretty insane 19-0 win streak. Nope, sorry, scratch that. He called it his 19-Bo streak. Eventually did lose to R-Truth, but from there, even though he went on this great win streak, his character kind of just became a jobber and a joke and would just continue to fall down in importance on the roster. He would then join a faction called the Social Outcast, which, funny enough, it's kind of what the WYATT SICKS is. It's just a bunch of social outcasts that have come together, but not that social outcast. That was just a collection of losers and jobbers that were forced to come together and put their powers together to become even bigger losers and even bigger jobbers. Yeah, Bo Dallas, Heath Slater, Adam Rose, and Curtis Axel didn't exactly move any mountains as a part of this group. But then from here, the downward spiral down the importance of the roster would continue for Bo Dallas as he would join the Miz Taraj and then the B Team, just continuing to join these loser groups. It honestly wasn't looking good for Bo Dallas's long-term health of his career in the WWE at this point. And that was accentuated when he was let go from the WWE in 2021 after a year-long hiatus from the company. But Bo Dallas was brought back alongside Bray Wyatt in late 2022, but this time, Bo Dallas didn't reject Bray Wyatt's offer to join the family like he did back in early 2013, as Bo Dallas was entirely repackaged as Uncle Howdy. Uncle Howdy was this mysterious figure with a top hat and a mustache that would occasionally haunt Bray Wyatt, but also assist Bray Wyatt in feuds with the likes of LA Knight, Hit Row, and Bobby Lashley. The Uncle Howdy was ultimately pulled off screen alongside Bray Wyatt due to Bray's illness prior to WrestleMania 39. Unfortunately, we never got to see what the plans were for Uncle Howdy and Bray Wyatt due to Bray Wyatt's unexpected death in the summer of 2023. But now, Bo Dallas, Uncle Howdy, Taylor Rotunda is carrying the figurative and literal lantern of Bray Wyatt in continuing the legacy of Bray Wyatt with the WYATT SICKS. All right, folks, thank you so much for watching that. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions about the WYATT SICKS or your overall thoughts about everything that's happening in today's wrestling with this group. But that's it. I'm done. Get out of here.